It is such an honor to host you. Like I said, it was amazing to have the interview that we did with Nick, and he primarily took point. I'm excited today to be able to ask you a few questions about your history and a few special moments kind of in your life. People that like the musical Hamilton might be thinking of the room where it happened. I think of these different rooms and presentations of places I've been that I've been able to learn about your research. It's just absolutely special times. And the one that I really want to start with is the most recent one, which is the conference that you just hosted. I know you have gone on a much needed vacation since hosting the conference. I just have to say, what a special event. That was incredibly done. Now that the dust has settled, how are you feeling about how it went?
Oh, I've said this many times. I'll just say it again. It went better than we had business for it to have gone. Like it was for it being our very first time. I mean, first of all, I have to pass the vast majority of the credit on to Sharon Del Pilar, who is Mrs. Dave Feldman. She crushed it, and to be fair, she is a pro in the business. She's done. She literally works in this field. But that said, she'd never done nor had I ever actually organized a conference. There's of course a lot of moving parts, a lot of people you got to curate and so forth. But there was some things that I always was saying that I'd want to do differently if I were to ever have a conference, and I'm thankful that I was able to hit a bunch of those. For one, I wanted to help other would-be people like myself. I got kind of the chance in 2017. Props to Jeffrey Gerber, who went ahead and put me in like one of the last slots on a Sunday, as low carb Breckenridge was winding down. And it was great because that was my shot to get the research out at that time. And I wanted to provide that kind of opportunity, literally build it into the conference. And so, as you saw, we had not just featured speakers, the speakers you are used to at a lot of low carb conferences, but specifically, we saved a lot of slots for citizen science speakers. And so they had 14 minutes to, give us where their research is, their new insights, their stories, and it was kind of a risk because you don't know. You don't know what they're going to bring. You haven't seen them in other venues necessarily. But I'm, I'm gonna humble brag here. I think it went off really great. People really liked all the talks, including the citizen science speakers, and I think it went off. Like I said, it went better than we had any business for it to have gone, given just how new we were to this and how many chances we were taking.
I've asked several people if it felt like the first time that this conference had been held. Universally, everybody was like, no, this feels like a conference that had been held 5 or 6 times. Absolutely love that you used the Wova app to help set the conference. That helped me to reach out to people before the conference to ask them what their expectations were before going to their very first low carbohydrate conference. Everything went super well. Who were you most impressed with as far as the citizen scientists and the topics they talked about?
Oof, you're asking me to pick one of my favorite children. There were so many good ones. I will go ahead and concede of the ones that were standing out in my mind. Of course, I liked Darius's talk a lot. I loved Matt Bazuki's talk, which is up. The last one I put up was Jessica Apple's. Just phenomenal. I mean, what a like get you in the feels, right? Just I really do think that as much as we need to put together the strong data so that we've got it in the literature, we've got those hard numbers, there really is something to be said about that human connection and hearing just one person talk about their whole case and presenting it live and really bringing it forward. And I felt like Jessica exemplified that like so well. She
So
really, and she had flown 27 hours to come give that talk. And that's some incredible dedication. And I thought she just killed it. She did fantastic.
yeah, and she's so humble. I talked to her afterwards, and she was like, "What? Do you think I did okay? Like, did I do all right? Like, yes, you did amazing. Like,
Yes.
everybody was talking about it. It was so good. Oh man, we did have one awkward moment. Like me, I was sitting next to our mutual friends of Dobbin. So me, Matt, and Robin, we've done several of these. We were sitting front row, and there was one speaker that went a little bit past his time and then kept going a little bit past his time and a little bit past his time. And for us in the audience, that was so awkward. We wanted to just like crawl into our chairs at that moment. Everything else was great. All the other talks were great. The community was excellent. It took me longer than it should have to make the connection, because I saw a group of people that were there because of concerns about cholesterol, and then mental health was also this like almost separate thing to me. There's
Mm.
so many people here for mental health, and then like I realized, well, of course they're all here for the same reasons. They're people like our good friend Robin, who is here because of both reasons. She
Yes.
has to be very low carbohydrate to avoid symptoms of bipolar, and what happens when she does that is a little bit scary, which we'll get into later. But like I realized there was that really cool conjunction between those two worlds.
Yeah, there's to be sure, the reason it was called the Collaborative Science Conference and not like the Low Carb Vegas Conference was it was kind of my broader vision. And the one thing that I felt like I could have done more on was I did want to pull in more folks that weren't necessarily specifically low carb. And that was also the case with the citizen science speakers, is I wanted to be sure that it didn't feel too homogenous in one particular direction. But that said, it is absolutely true that a lot of the folks who follow me and follow my work are specifically interested in the cholesterol connection, and that's also why the one panel I wanted to be sure we had was specific to this work, was the LMHR panel. That too went way better than I thought it was going to go. I just that was the most recent video that I put out, and by popular demand, because people kept. I thought I'd be putting it out toward the end of the slate of the different talks, and it's been the most requested. People have been emailing me, like, when's the panel coming out? When's it coming out? And it's because, of course, it's a hot topic. Is if you are on a low carb diet, and especially if you're on it for efficacious reasons, you have a particular treatment that you're making use of it for. It's not just that you're doing it because it's trendy, but you actually are. You're addressing, like in the case with Robin, you're addressing like bipolar, or you're addressing epilepsy, or you're addressing ulcerative colitis, like Nick Norwitz. You have a particular reason, and there seems to be just this one thing that's through the roof, cholesterol. It's literally what the purpose of the conference was, which kind of helps pull me back around to the literally the purpose of this conference was to raise money. It was a charity event dressed up as a conference, but we are taking all of the dollars raised from attendees straight to the next study, to the sister study for the next endeavor. And it's what's neat is we're helping to prove this model works. It does take a lot of elbow grease, takes a lot of work. And again, I have a saint of a wife that would actually go through all of this and organize all of this and also contribute her time. But that's what can I say? We're going to keep doing it as long as it keeps showing its success.
Well, I haven't talked to anybody who wouldn't come back absolutely to that conference. So again, kudos to you, and well deserved all the praise and the money that you raised and everything. I think the Saturday morning panel was a great place to kind of make this point. It's Saturday morning. It's Vegas. Everybody had traveled there. There was a time change earlier that week, which was kicking everybody's ass anyway. Storms in Vegas wasn't exactly the best,
Yeah.
Vegas weather that weekend, which we can talk about. But like everybody was tired, and it's Saturday morning. We start at 8. This panel's at 9. We're talking about some very technical, complicated things. And I was thinking during the conference, like, I wonder if I could steal Dave to like just have like a soundbite, maybe just ask one question. You were way too busy. There was no chance that was ever going to happen. But the question I was going to ask you was, what did you think about a generally lay audience? People like me, I'm a personal trainer. Like people, citizen scientists, and the level of questions they were asking to some very, very smart people on stage. What can you comment about that?
As far as like how well that went, or
The quality of the knowledge and the questions of the people that were attending, the lay people that were just there to learn, like, were you pretty impressed with how freaking smart they were?
yeah, I was very impressed. It was, you know, I probably would have only tweaked getting the mic out to the audience sooner, The very first question ended up being from David Diamond. You'll see in the video, I actually had sort of the captions over top. That's the only thing that I kind of cringe at, but it it's meaningful to me. One way you can kind of know when something went well, especially like a panel, is if you're re-listening to it. Let's say it came up in your feed or whatever, and you're just like, "Oh yeah, I did kind of want to hear back on this question," or "I wanted to know what this answer sounded like," and you find you can't stop listening to it. You didn't mean to listen to it for very long. And that was the case with this panel. This panel, I literally moderated it. And then I edit the video. And then I'm previewing the video just to make sure that the sound quality came all right at the point that I'm launching it. I'm like, yeah, I still want to listen to it. I want to listen to this panel technically in the third time. And I don't have the time. It's so even like speeding it up a little, 1.5 times speed, just the interactions between all three of the panelists. It was extremely professional. It was very articulate. They got into some of the key differences, and I felt like it was well represented. But yeah, to your point, we also got some very interesting questions from the audience. One thing I really appreciate is I did try to set the tone early on that I wanted to keep things very concise and I wanted to run a tight ship. And so, yeah, as you no doubt noticed, in some cases I had to prompt a speaker to wrap up because I was intending to really move us along to really keep as many because you also want to be fair to the other speakers. You don't want to like encroach on their time as well, right? However, with that, that does mean that, we're taking less time for questions on a per speaker basis unless they give the balance of time to be able to have that happen. But if you're really fair and you set the tone, as I kind of hoped and speculated, then that was the case. In the case with the panel, we did manage to get through a lot of questions. There was a couple of times where I had to kind of crack the whip a little bit, like, we need this to be concise. But everybody was good natured about it. It really did work out.
Yeah, every conference needs a Doug Reynolds to speed up the questions and make sure
Yeah.
inevitably somebody goes into their family history and is asking very personal questions and medical advice. Like, okay, come on.